You won't believe what happened when I caught a woman, someone I thought was harmless, stealing from my wife. It all started like a normal day, but things quickly escalated when I walked in on her rummaging through my wife's wardrobe. At first, I couldn't believe my eyes. She was acting like it was perfectly fine, like she had every right to take whatever she wanted. But the worst part, she didn't stop there. Instead of apologizing or owning up to it, she made a scene that I never saw coming. This woman, who we'll just call Karen, immediately grabbed her phone and called 911. And get this, she was actually telling the dispatcher that *I* was the one causing trouble, accusing me of something I never even did. You'd think someone caught in the act would be embarrassed, but not her. She was ready to get me arrested for something I wasn't guilty of. As I stood there, shocked and confused, I had no idea how far this would go. Was she really going to twist the story and get me in trouble for trying to stop her from stealing? Trust me, this is just the beginning. You won't believe how things turned out. Stick around to hear what happened next. This story is far from over. To understand how this whole situation even started, you need to know a bit about Karen. She's a neighbor we've known for a while, always polite, always around. But there was something off about her. Over the past few months, she had been acting more and more like she had a claim to our things. Always popping over uninvited, always borrowing stuff, like a dress here, a pair of shoes there. At first, we'd brushed it off, thinking it was just innocent borrowing. But as time went on, her visits became more frequent, and it felt less like borrowing and more like taking. My wife had even noticed some of her clothes going missing, but we didn't want to make a big deal of it, assuming it was a simple mistake. It wasn't until this morning that everything came to light. My wife had left a few new dresses in the closet, and when I went to grab one for her, I saw Karen in there, like she was shopping in a store. She had the nerve to pick out a dress, hold it up to herself, and even try it on. That's when I confronted her, but instead of backing down, she snapped. That's when the 911 call came. I never thought something so small would blow up into a full-on crisis. But at that moment, I knew we were in for a battle, and I wasn't sure how far Karen was willing to go. As I stood there, trying to make sense of what had just happened, Karen seemed completely unfazed. She was still standing there, in one of my wife's new dresses, as though she were the one entitled to it. I couldn't believe my eyes. She must have noticed my expression because she just gave me this smug smile, like she had all the power in the world. I tried to stay calm, but everything inside me was boiling. "Karen, what the heck are you doing?" I said, my voice trembling with frustration. She shrugged like it was no big deal. "I'm just trying it on. What's the problem? You know, your wife doesn't mind sharing, right?" It was at that moment I realized just how far Karen had crossed a line. This wasn't just an innocent mistake anymore. She'd been doing this behind our backs for months. My wife had been too polite to say anything, but I saw now that the situation had gotten out of control. I told her to leave immediately, but Karen didn't budge. Instead, she turned toward the door, grabbed her phone, and without warning, dialed 911. The operator answered, and Karen's voice went icy cold. "Help, I'm being attacked by my neighbor. He's threatening me and stealing my things. He needs to be arrested." I was left in total shock. She had the audacity to flip the story on its head like that. My mind raced. Could she really convince the authorities I was the one in the wrong? How had this woman, who'd always been so friendly, become so manipulative? I stood there, trying to process everything, when I heard the dispatcher's voice on the other end. "Sir, are you threatening this woman?" "Absolutely not," I replied, trying to stay calm. "She's in my house, wearing my wife's clothes without permission, and I just asked her to leave." The operator paused for a moment, and I could hear the tension building in her voice. "Sir, please remain calm. Officers are on their way. Please do not escalate the situation further." "Escalate?" I repeated, almost laughing in disbelief. "I'm not the one causing a scene here. She's the one who broke into my home and is stealing my wife's things." But it was too late. Karen had already spun the story so well. twisting every little detail to make herself look like the victim. My heart pounded in my chest as I wondered how long it would take for the officers to arrive. Was this really happening? Would they believe her over me? Meanwhile, I could hear Karen in the background, talking to the dispatcher like she was the one in control. The longer I stood there, the more I realized how much power she had. She had planted a seed of doubt, and I couldn't shake the feeling that the situation was quickly spiraling out of my control. What would happen when the cops got here? Would they even believe me? Just as I was beginning to feel the weight of it all, Karen made one final move. She pointed to my phone on the counter and said, "He's got cameras everywhere. He's been watching me. I'm scared. Please, get here fast." That's when I really started to panic. What does she mean by that? Was she trying to twist the truth even further? What other lies had she told to make herself look like the victim? Now, everything felt like a ticking time bomb. The cops were on their way, and I didn't know what to expect when they arrived. Would they arrest me? Would they believe Karen's story? What if she'd already convinced everyone around her that I was some sort of criminal? The more I thought about it, the more hopeless the situation seemed. And just when I thought things couldn't get worse, I heard the sirens in the distance. The tension in the air was thick, and I realized that I was about to be thrust into a nightmare that I never saw coming. What would Karen do next? Would she finally back down, or was this just the beginning of her plan to destroy everything? The sound of sirens grew louder, and my heart raced. I could hear Karen whispering into her phone, making sure every word she said painted me as some sort of threat. Every passing second felt like a lifetime. The entire situation had spiraled beyond my control, and the weight of it hit me like a ton of bricks. I could feel my pulse in my temples, each beat louder than the last. I glanced at my phone. The camera was still recording, capturing everything. I had no idea if it would help me in the end, but I couldn't let her turn the narrative into something I couldn't defend against. I made sure to stay calm, though it was hard. The seconds stretched, and I wondered what the officers would think when they showed up. Would they take one look at Karen's tear-filled face and believe her? Or would they see the truth? The doorbell rang, and it felt like my whole world stopped. I knew it was the police. The moment of truth was here. I took a deep breath and opened the door, and there they were, 2 officers standing there, their eyes scanning the situation. They barely looked at me before turning to Karen, who quickly stepped forward, her expression still full of panic. "Officer, this man, he's been harassing me. I'm terrified. He's been watching me for weeks, and now he's gone too far," Karen said, her voice shaky, but convincing. I could hardly believe what I was hearing. This wasn't the same woman I had known. The same woman who had been borrowing my wife's clothes, who had been in our home without permission. She'd spun a story that made it sound like I was the one in the wrong, and I was powerless to stop it. I felt my throat tighten as the officers asked me to step outside. They didn't seem angry or upset, but their serious tone told me they were already considering everything Karen had said. I tried to explain, to tell them what had really happened, but Karen cut me off, launching into her version of events. The more she spoke, the more convincing she sounded. She talked about how I had been watching her, how I had been following her every move, even claiming that I'd been sneaking into her house. I couldn't believe it. She was painting me as some kind of obsessed stalker. "Sir, is there any truth to these accusations?" one of the officers asked, glancing at me. I swallowed hard. No, none of it is true. She's lying. She's the one who's been taking my wife's clothes. She's the one who's been crossing the line. Please, just listen to me. I've got proof, I said, feeling my voice crack with desperation. But as I reached for my phone to show them the video, the officer interrupted. "We'll need to review everything, sir, but right now, you're not under arrest. Just stay here while we talk to her." I nodded, trying to stay composed, but the tension was thick. My mind raced. What if they didn't believe me? What if she had already convinced them I was some kind of danger? I knew the video on my phone might help, but how could I make them see the truth? What if Karen had already planted seeds of doubt in their minds, made it impossible for them to trust me. The officers took Karen to the side, speaking to her in low voices, and I could hear her crying. It sounded fake, almost rehearsed. She was putting on a show, and I knew it. But what if it worked? What if she had already manipulated them into believing I was the problem? Minutes passed like hours. Every second felt like it was pushing me closer to the edge. I stood there, trapped in my own home, with no idea how this would play out. My wife wasn't home, there were no other witnesses, and the only proof. Then, just as the officers were about to speak to me again, Karen dropped a bombshell. Actually, I have another video. He's been following me for days. I'm scared for my life. I can't go back to my house. He's been watching me through my windows. I froze. What was she talking about? Another video? Did she actually have something that could back up her twisted version of the story? The officer turned to me, his eyes narrowing. "Sir, do you have any response to that?" I was speechless. The walls felt like they were closing in on me. Was I about to be arrested over something that wasn't even real? What was Karen going to do next? I knew I had to act fast if I had any chance of clearing my name, but the clock was ticking, and every move felt like it could make things worse. The officer's eyes were still locked on me, his expression unreadable. I could feel the weight of his gaze, the unspoken judgment hanging in the air. I tried to steady myself, but Karen's latest accusation hit me like a freight train. Another video. What was she talking about? I had no idea what was going on in her head, but it was clear she was playing this game to win. Just as I was about to respond, a car pulled up in front of the house. The officer turned, his hand instinctively moving to his belt. I didn't recognize the car, but the license plate looked familiar. My heart sank. I could see it now, a figure stepping out of the car, moving with a purpose. I couldn't believe it. It was my wife, but she wasn't alone. Behind her, walking slowly toward the porch, was none other than Karen's husband. I had no idea he'd even been involved in any of this, and seeing him here, standing side by side with my wife, added another layer to the chaos. Why was he here? What was going on? My stomach churned. Was this all part of Karen's plan? Had she been working with him this whole time? I couldn't wrap my mind around it. The tension between me and the officers grew as they looked back and forth between Karen, her husband, and my wife. Before I could even open my mouth, Karen spoke up, her voice sharp, almost triumphant. "You see, he's been stalking me. He's obsessed with me. My husband agrees. This has gone on far too long." Karen's husband nodded, his face hardening as he looked at me. "I've seen the way he watches her, the way he lurks around. It's been going on for months. We're just trying to protect her. This has gone too far." The words hit me like a punch to the gut. What was happening? Was this all part of some twisted scheme to set me up? My mind raced, trying to piece it all together. Was Karen's husband really involved in all of this? And why hadn't my wife said anything? Why was she just standing there, quiet, not defending me?